if you have a loved one that's suffering from substance abuse or chemical dependency, we know certain things don't work. Well, I should say that are less effective. So nagging, threatening, giving ultimatums, although it's completely understandable because it is so emotionally exhausting on family members. Those things are not as effective. Essentially, there's only 3 ways that you can really influence a person's behavior, 3 broad ways as a psychologist, especially as a behavioral psychologist that we recommend. There's something called a cost-benefit analysis, and that's where somebody weighs the pros and cons of their behavior. If somebody has costs, let's say that, for example, they're missing work because they're too hungover to go in, and they have a well-meaning spouse that calls their employer and says, I'm so sorry, my husband must have the flu. He's been in bed for a day. That's why he's not coming in. She's making excuses. We call that enabling. And a lot of people think they know what that means or they have a sense of it, but the way I'm defining it is shielding a person from the natural consequences of their behavior. So if you're doing a cost-benefit, and one of your costs normally would be, this is affecting my work, but your spouse is protecting you from that cost, you're not as likely to appreciate the impact and do that weighing of the pros and cons. So the one way that you can impact behavior is to avoid protecting the person from the natural consequences. That's hard to do, but it's an essential process. The other thing is this. We typically reward the wrong behaviors. You know, if somebody is acting, if a student in class, let's even remove this from addiction for a moment. In a classroom, if a kid is the class clown or he's acting out, he gets a lot of positive attention in terms of laughter, even if he gets sent to the principal's office. There's a lot of attention. What about the kid that's sitting there folding their hands and doing everything they're supposed to do? It's largely ignored. Well, how does this apply to addiction? If somebody's engaged in sober behavior, or you see them making very positive steps toward it, or they're talking about wanting to get into treatment, I recommend lots of positive reinforcement for that. And that could be in terms of verbal praise, affection, sometimes even monetary. It depends. I've had some younger people where the parents have rewarded them for clean drug tests, for example. And the last thing is something similar to what we do with kids that's called timeout. And what timeout really is, it's removing things that the person normally finds pleasurable when they're engaged in the inappropriate behavior. So if somebody is engaged in, if they're intoxicated or if they're refusing treatment, the timeout would work where you would actually remove affection or remove yourself physically. And you usually tell the person ahead of time, listen, I can't tell you what to do, but if you are going to be intoxicated in front of me or if you're refusing to go to treatment, then I simply can't be around for that. So those are, so broadly, just to summarize, so you can shield somebody from the, you want to avoid shielding a person from the natural consequences, so that's avoid enabling. You want to positively reinforce appropriate behavior, like seeking treatment, sober behavior. And you want to, when the person's engaged in inappropriate behavior, intoxication, or refusal to go to treatment, removing things that are positive from them at that time that they value, and that's called timeout.